Welcome to Math with Mrs. Bibb. Today we will be writing linear equations in slope-intercept form, point-slope form, and standard form. Listed are the forms of equations: slope-intercept form, point-slope form, and standard form. Example 1 says write an equation of the line that passes through negative 8, 6 and has a slope of negative 3/4. If I'm going to write that equation in slope-intercept form, I need a slope and I need the y-intercept. I do know the slope. The slope is negative 3/4. Do I know the y-intercept? If my ordered pair that's been given to me starts with a 0, then that is the y-intercept. Does my ordered pair that was given to me start with a 0? No, it does not. It starts with negative 8 and then positive 6. There are many different ways to go about finding the y-intercept, but we're going to use point-slope form to find the y-intercept. Point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. My slope, I do know, it is negative 3/4. And my x1 and my y1 I also know. My x1 is negative 8 and my y1 is positive 6. Y minus positive 6 equals negative 3/4 times x minus negative 8. And you are welcome to go ahead and put plus positive 8, as two negatives together would make a positive. Now I'm going to distribute my negative 3/4. This would be considered point slope form. Sometimes the textbook will ask you to just write the equation in point slope form, and that would be considered your point slope form, but we are going to write this answer in slope intercept form. So I will not be finished until I have my equation written in y equals mx plus b form. I'm going to distribute, keep my y minus 6, negative 3/4 times x is negative 3/4 x. Negative 3/4 times positive 8 over 1 is negative 24 over 4, which is negative 6. Now I'm going to get my y alone by adding 6 to both sides. So y is going to equal negative 3/4 x, and negative 6 plus 6 is 0, so my y-intercept is 0. And that would be how I would find the equation of a line that passes through negative 8, 6 and has a slope of negative 3/4. Example 2. Marissa is baking a recipe that calls for her to turn down the temperature on her oven for part of the baking time. Write an equation to represent the situation if the temperature in her oven drops 25 degrees every 30 seconds and after 2 minutes the temperature is 350 degrees. So we want to write an equation in slope-intercept form of a line that would fit this scenario. We have one ordered pair that we would use, and that's 2, 350. So x is our time, and y is our temperature in degrees. It tells us that the change in x is 30 seconds or half a minute, and that change is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. So my slope, the change in y over the change in x, that is the Greek letter delta and it represents change in mathematics. So the change in y over the change in x. So the change in y, it's changing, dropping 25 degrees every half a minute. So negative 25 divided by 1/2, which would be negative 25 times 2. So my slope is negative 50. I don't have the y-intercept, so I'm going to use point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Y minus y1 is 350 equals m times x minus x1, which is 2. I'm going to distribute the 50. And remember, this here is point slope form for this equation. I'm going to distribute. So I have negative 50x plus 100. I'm going to add 350. So y is going to equal negative 50x plus 450. That's the equation of my line in slope-intercept form that fits this scenario. For my next one, I want to write the equation of the line that passes through those 2 points. So the first thing I need to do is find the slope. Remember, the formula for slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Remember, the first x you see, the first y you see. The second x you see, the second y you see. And I am going to fill in what I know. Y2 is 1.6 minus negative 0.7. X2 is negative 3.4 minus 1.2. Negative 1.6 plus 0.7 is 2.3, and negative 3.4 minus 1.2 is negative 4.6. If you're ever faced with a slope that looks like this, you are welcome to grab a calculator, and when you grab that calculator, you end up with a slope of negative 0.5. I honestly prefer negative 1/2, but I do like the rule that you would use that if you start with decimals, then your answer should be expressed with decimals. So I'm going to keep that decimal of negative 0.5. I'm going to look at my 2 given ordered pairs. Are either of them my y-intercept? And no, they are not. I do not have 0 in the x. So I'm going to use point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm going to fill in what I know. Y minus y1 is negative 0.7 equals m, which is negative 0.5, times x minus 1.2. I'm going to distribute. Y plus 7 is going to equal negative 0.5x plus, I don't have a calculator on me, so I'll just multiply. 5 times 2 is 10, 6 over 2 decimal places. So 0.6 plus 0.6. I'm going to subtract 7. So y is going to equal negative 0.5x. Negative 7 plus 0.6 would be negative 0.1. And that would be my equation of the line that passes through those two given points. For example 4, I have a table that tells me the number of students enrolled in public high schools in the United States since 2010, and it's showing that it's rising. The student population has been rising since 2010, and it says we're going to write an equation that could be used to predict the number of students enrolled in public high schools, if enrollment continues to grow at that same rate. So we are trying to figure out an equation that could predict that enrollment with the same rate. We need to find the slope. Does this seem to have a constant rate of change? Well, let's see. The difference here is 4. Of course, all of these are 1. The difference here is just 1. The difference for the next one is 72. And the difference here is 86. So it does not have a constant rate of change, but it does say it's risen slightly since 2010. I need to think about finding the average rate of change. If I find the average rate of change, which I added all of these up, and that gave me 163, and I divided by 4 of them, then my average rate of change was about 40.75 students in thousands per year. So that's going to be my slope. My slope is 40.75. The y-intercept would be how many students in 2010. So if my average rate of change is 40.75, then I'm going to take 14,749 and subtract, I'm using a calculator, if I could use it properly, 14,749 and subtract 40.75, that would give me 14,708.25 for my y-intercept. 14,708.25 for my y-intercept. So I can write the equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals 40.75x plus 14,708.25. That's going to be my answer. Now let's see if that's going to be reasonable. If I count from 2010 to 2015, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm going to substitute. So I'm checking for reasonableness here. And you should do the same. Make sure you write this down. So if I'm checking for reasonableness, I'm going to substitute 5 in for x. And hopefully I'll get close to 14,912. I'm going to do 40.75 times 5, which would be 203.75 plus 14,708.25, 14,708. keep typing the wrong numbers. 0.25, and that is 14,912. So my estimate is reasonable to find the average rate of change, which is 40.75, and then use that to find the population in 2010, which is when we began, and then write my equation using the slope and the y-intercept. For the next one, determine whether the given point is on the line. Wonder how we could do that. How could we figure out if the point 6, -2 is on that line y equals 1/2 x minus 5? So hopefully, if you thought about it, you decided that you should substitute this in for x and this in for y and see if it makes a true statement. So that's what I'm going to do. -2 in for y. You do not have to rewrite that. I just want to write it underneath it. -2 in for y. 6 in for x. And I want to know, is this true? Is -2 equal to half of 6 is 3. 3 minus 5 is -2. So, yes, that's a true statement, which means that 6 -2 lies on the line y equals 1/2 x minus 5 because substituting these values in for x and y gives, that should not be there, that period, gives a true statement. I don't know if I like that sentence very well, but that's it. Here we go on to the next one. Write an equation in point-slope form for the line that passes through -2, 7 with a slope of -3/2. So point-slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. x1, y1, m. So y minus 7 equals -3/2 times x minus -2. And you are welcome to go ahead and write it this way. Y minus 7 equals -3/2 times x plus 2. That is my equation. To graph, I am going to draw my y-axis. I drew my x-axis first. And I'm going to -2, +7. So I'm going to make it taller with the positive axis bigger, because my slope is -3/2. I always rise 3, so that's up 3, and then I'm going to go left 2. So I'll rise first and then run left. You are welcome to go down first and run right, but I like to rise first. To me, rise means up always. So I'm going to plot -2, +7. And from here, I'm going to rise 3. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to run 2 to the left. 1, 2. Then I'm going to rise 3 more. 1, 2, 3. And run 2 more to the left. 1, 2. I like to have 4 points on my graph. Then I'm going to rise 3 more. 1, 2, 3. And run 2 more to the left, although I went off my x-axis, and that's okay. And then I'm going to attempt to draw, which I'm going to show you and we'll check that. If I would have went down 3, down 1, 2, 3, and right 2, then I would have been here, so that's close. And then go down 3 more, down 1, 2, 3. I didn't do too bad. If I go down 1, 2, 3, and right 2, I'm going to be about there. So I didn't do too bad. So I checked it by going down 3 and right 2. So that's how you graph that line. Write an equation in point-slope form for the line that passes through the given points. Okay, we have to have the slope. So I've got to find my slope. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So I get 1. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y plus 7 equals, I'm going to leave the 1 there. I have seen it there in this particular textbook. Normally I would not put that 1 there, but I'm going to leave it there just because. So I'm going to leave that. That's my point slope form. I'm going to rewrite that in standard form. So y plus 7, I'm going to distribute the 1. 1 times x is x. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. I am going to subtract 7. And then I'm going to think about standard form. And I don't think I have written this anywhere when it comes to standard form. And you may want to go back to the beginning and underneath standard form write this information that I'm about to write. So in standard form, of course, you have ax plus by equals c there for standard form. A, b, and c have to be integers, which means no decimals or fractions, with a greatest common factor of 1. Now, if you can't remember that GCF stands for greatest common factor, make sure to write that out, greatest common factor. Also, A must, oh no, let me write it properly. Sorry about that. Okay, A has to be greater than, I want to say 0. It technically has to be greater than 1. Greater than or equal to 1. Because it can be 1. It has to be positive. That's one thing that has to be true. A has to be positive. The coefficient of your x has to be positive. And then A and B both cannot equal 0. Okay, so I'm going to subtract x, and I'm going to have negative x plus y equals negative 9. So that's very close to ax plus by equals c, although it does not fit this description. A is not bigger than 1, so I have to divide everything by negative 1 to fix that. So negative x divided by negative 1 is positive x. Positive y divided by negative 1 is negative y. Negative 9 divided by negative 1 is positive 9. So this is the equation of that line in standard form. Example 9, we are talking about Nadia's book club. They are ordering new novels, and she knows that the total cost of 5 books is $61.25. and 15 books cost $159.75. We're going to write an equation in point slope form to represent the total cost y of ordering X books. We're going to write those two pieces of information as ordered pairs. X stands for books, so 5 books. Y stands for total cost, $61.25. X stands for total books, so 15 books. And Y stands for total cost, $159.75. So the first thing I need to do is find the slope, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So that denominator will be easier for me to get. That's 10. My numerator is 98.5. And 98.5 divided by 10 is 9.85. That's my slope. And then to write it in point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And that's my answer to my problem. I wrote the equation in point slope form. And this last one, we want to write that in standard form. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute. Y minus 1 equals negative 2/5 times x is negative 2/5 x. Negative 2/5 times 3 is negative 6/5. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the fraction. I'm going to multiply everything by the least common denominator. The denominators I have are 1, 1, 5, and 5. So the least common denominator of 1, 1, 5, and 5 is 5. So I'm going to multiply everything by 5. 5 times y is 5y. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. 5 times negative 2/5. 5 times negative 2 over 5 is negative 10 over 5, which is negative 2. So negative 2x. 5 times negative 6/5 is negative 30 over 5, which is negative 6. Now I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So 5y equals negative 2x minus 1. And then I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So I'd have 2x plus 5y equals negative 1. And I have written that equation that was in point slope form in standard form. I hope you have a wonderful day.